Change is inevitable. That's what they say, right? Why is it that the one thing that we should always expect is also one thing we judge super harshly? Today, we are going to be talking about reinvention.
Hello, my name is Mothoni Gitao. Welcome to another episode of Just Doing Life, the podcast, a space where we explore all the parts of life that we do not like to say out loud. After all, we are all just winging it.
Welcome to the first episode of Options 2025. I'm going to say something weird. Please accept it. Happy New Year. I know it's odd, it's weird hearing Happy New Year, but it is the first time we're seeing each other and hearing each other this year. So please and thank you. Happy New Year to you. I hope you had a lovely transition into the new year. My name is Mothoni Gitao, in case this is the first time you are hearing this voice or seeing this face. I am the host of Just Doing Life, the podcast, and Options is a weekly series where we discuss all these little things that I have learned through my 30-some years of existing on this earth. And today, the topic is reinvention. I am no stranger to reinventing myself. Okay, maybe that's not the way to say it. As I chase my passions, sometimes I end up going through different paths in life. I think, yes, I wanted to start like way back when, but I would like to say that the consistent thing in my life has been I've always been chasing my creative expression. And those creative expressions have changed over the years. When I first got into Oh, that's actually a lie. I wanted to start with theater, but that's a lie. That's not where it started. We're going to go way back when I can remember. So I did not study the creative arts when I was in primary school. Unfortunately, when I got to class 4, is when they scrapped the humanities and the arts, the arts program. So the things that allowed us to play with our hands, home science, arts and crafts, music, anything that was deemed creative got scrapped off when I got to class 4. And we used to start doing them at class 4. So the year that Mothoni was joining class 4 was the year they were also like, yeah, these things are no longer important, get rid of them. So I never got to really participate in them. And apart from that year, I was in class 4, and the year I was in class 5, where they sent over they were called the Teachers College teachers. I don't know. Is that what we were calling them? The girls from Teachers College. And when they would come, they would allow us to do the quote unquote fun stuff. So I never got to follow my creative inclinations in that moment or when I was in primary school like that. However, I used to love coloring. I don't think I can draw, but I used to love playing around with color, playing around with paints. And whenever I was at home, I would do that. My mom used to encourage that and the reason I'm saying this is because she used to make sure we had things like crayons in the house. I don't know if this happened for everyone, because I know within our space, it didn't happen for everyone. We used to have quirky pens, interesting looking things that everyone else would consider quirky. I remember like even in school, I used to have funny looking pens, but they still did the job, right? And I remember like I was in class 7 and I had like this gorgeous glitter green pen. So I guess my creative inclinations have always been there. I used to be a storyteller. My mom used to call me Kameme because anytime power would go out at night, I would entertain everyone with stories and ask questions. I was always a very curious child. My mom used to crochet. She used to crochet all our, like, not all, but most of our vitambas. If you are someone who grew up in an African household, you know what it is. The ones that we used to cover our sits with. And she also used to do embroidery. Never learned much about that, but I used to watch my mom do this kinds of stuff. So it wasn't like a foreign concept to me. Being a creative person or showing up creatively was never a foreign concept, okay? So over the years, where the reinventions begin, when I was in high school, I used to love English. English was, well, even before that, English used to be my favorite subject. And my English teacher in high school encouraged me to do more. So I used to write poetry. I used to write short stories. The first book I ever wrote, I was in Form 3. I wrote a whole book by hand. in an actual notebook. And it was a book that was set in high school, relationships in high school, friendships in high school. It kind of portrayed the kind of experiences I was having in high school. And also, it had boys because, yeah, I was curious about that as much as I did not entertain it. So I wrote a book, right? A couple of people in my class read my book. Lillian, you know yourself. Um, Lillian was like she used to encourage me and all my expressions, which was fun. Having someone to encourage you as you are expressing things that no one else understands is always good. So my English teacher encouraged me. And I remember like at one point, I used to write poems and shairis that would actually be taken to drama festival, music festival, that kind of stuff. And I used to be very comfortable writing them. And I remember one year where I was encouraged to perform one of my pieces and I bombed. I actually bombed on stage. I failed. And I felt so bad because I forgot what I had written. So I forgot, I choked. And then the thing that made me feel super bad was that I'm the one who wrote it. It wasn't written by someone else. It was a piece that I had written and someone else went and performed it and they did so well. And I was like, what is wrong with me? You know how that goes. I was very hard on myself at that point. So that was my first time on stage. And my first time on stage, I bombed. Then I remember also still in high school, the second time on stage, I did a bit better. It was a play, and I was playing a character that was male. We were in an all girls high school. My character was male. And that one I didn't bomb. It was fun. I had a great time. But even at that point, I didn't think theater was going to be my thing. The first time I got an interest in theater was when we went to watch a play, those set books, and we watched Kifo Kisimani. And I've never forgotten this. It was my first time seeing Bobby Muga on stage, and he was the main character of the book. I don't remember their name. And he acted his entire ass off. Like, I was like, oh my freaking God, that was amazing. And I went and said hi to him after we were done, before we went back to school. So what I did is when I came back home for the holidays, I went back. I went back to the theater. I went back to watch Kifoki Simani. And this time around is when like I actually tried to talk to the actors. I think when I went the second time, it was a different group. I didn't know there were different theater groups that did this. So it was a completely different group that was putting on the show, but I still enjoyed it. And that's when I became curious about theater. And I was like, can anyone come do this here? And I was told, yeah, like there's people who come do auditions. So if you ever feel like you're interested in being in a play or whatever, just come. You'll find an audition poster, audition, as long as you meet the qualifications. So that was the way I gained my interest in theater. So I go to theater, and then as we're doing, I at that time when I now went for my first audition, I was in campus. This is after I finished high school, of course. So now I'm in campus. We go for my first audition. I go with a couple of people from my class, and I'm the only person who actually gets a role. And not only do I get a role, I actually get a leading role. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe this is something I could do. So I'm surrounded by all these people who have dreams about Hollywood. I used to love reading books. I used to love watching TV series. I used to love watching movies, but at no point did I ever see myself on that side. Because even when I went to campus and I had gone to learn about journalism, well, I was doing mass communication. The idea behind it was broadcast journalism. And then when I got there, I realized there are so many other things I could do within the journalism space, which was like, oh, I have options. That's actually good. So when I was there, I was like, oh, you'd be the person reading the news. So even when I went to campus, that was the thought that I had in my mind. You'll be the person reading the news, because that's the beginning and end of journalism that I had seen or I had witnessed. So we are here, we're doing theater, we're doing plays, and we're doing this fast play. And the role I'm playing is a journalist. And I absolutely killed that role. I don't care what anyone has to say. Me, I know I killed it. It was really good. I remember the person I was acting alongside, across from, I was the leading lady. The leading man decides to leave us the day before opening night. So our director actually had to be on stage with us. And I used to really respect our director, Peter Tosh at the time. He's the one who taught me everything I know about like comedic timing and everything. Like I learned so much about comedy from him because his plays were comedies, but then there was also like the whole underlying message thingy under everything and all that. Anyway, so when I'm in theater, I used to write poetry still. And sometimes during rehearsals, I would read my pieces to guys and I'd be like, oh, guys, I wrote this yesterday. Let me read it for you. And guys would be like, oh, Mathani, that's so cool. So one time we're doing a show at St. Andrew's, the church. And there's an event that used to happen there called Eve of Poetry. I had no idea. I didn't know at this point there were poetry events that used to happen. So my director introduces me to Njora, Elsafa Njora. Hi, Njora. So I'm introduced to Njora, and he says, "Oh, she writes really good poetry. You should have her on your event." And that's how I ended up performing, like for an audience that wasn't like people I knew. It was like performing to strangers. Let's call it that. And I perform, and I remember being asked like, what's your name? What do you want to be called when you're coming on stage? People used to call me Mso all the time, and I used to insist it's not Mso like short form for Muthoni, it's Mso like big. Remember like that song, Nimso? Eh. I came before the song, just so you know. Okay. Yes, Mso came before. I know I came before the song. Okay. We're not going to argue about it. So that's how I end up starting to perform poetry. And then I move from Eve of Poetry. I now meet other poets. I find out about all these other events where people just show up and perform their poems. And that's how I started performing at all these different places. And I was like, oh my God, this is fun. So now I'm doing theater and I'm doing poetry. And then also leading up to this, okay, during this same period of time, I was doing a lot of script writing work as well. So I was still like within the realm of doing a lot of writing and performing. And then, of course, during, no, after I met someone, this is usually hard to Nini. I feel like it's still something I haven't healed from, I guess. But I I get I end up getting assaulted by someone who I met through the the theater space, and the person, like the orchestration and everything that happened, the people, everyone involved in that story was from that space. So for my own safety, I decided to pull myself away from the theater space. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing at the time, but looking back, I can tell that that's what I did at the time. So I pulled myself from that space and I stopped doing that. And I ended up still just staying within the poetry space. And from poetry, I started doing social media. And then from social media, well, it's been like that ever since, where I will be writing here and there. I'll do blogging, content creation. At the time, I was doing social media management. So I've always been following my creative inclinations. So that's the underlying factor. And with all this reinventions of myself, where I went from being a writer to just being a stage performer, being an actor, to being a stage manager. Because I remember, like, at one point within the group that I used to work with, I became a stage manager, and then becoming a social media manager, and then becoming a content creator. Um, and then from content creation, becoming an interior designer, and becoming a designer, becoming a production designer. All these things are reinventions. These reinventions, maybe the difference is in the name, but at the core of it, the essence was, I just want to create, right? So change for me has been a familiar friend, and I have always embraced change. Sometimes reinvention is not just like, for instance, like with me, with my creative expressions, sometimes it's identifying with, I'm in a relationship, to I'm single, to I'm divorced, to I'm trying to figure life out, to, oh, now I am a cat mom, or I am a mom. I went from just being a babe on the, you know, out here just in a relationship with someone, to now being married to them, to now being a mother. And you can reinvent yourself, because all these things are change taking different forms and forcing you to become a different person. Sometimes it's forced, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it comes from a point of wanting something different. I am currently on a journey of changing my life because I am wanting something different. I am wanting a change in the way that I show up in the world, in the way that I create content. So again, it's still within the realm of creation, but I want to change the way that I create. I want to change the kinds of conversations that I have with people. And sometimes when we are doing all these things, there are people who do not like that for us. And the most interesting phrase I have ever had in regards to this is that sometimes people will walk away from you because you are becoming someone that they can't keep up with, which comes down to maybe comparison, or you are becoming someone who maybe you don't take the same BS anymore. When you think about maybe friendships, there's certain friendships that you end up leaving behind because you are becoming a different person and those two people don't gel anymore. I know I have left friendships where when I look back, I'm like, what was I doing there? Like, what was going on? What was everything okay at home? No, but why did I tolerate certain things? And it's because at that point in time, the person I was maybe didn't mind those things or was okay being quiet about certain things. Because sometimes it's not that you are comfortable with the things, sometimes it's you haven't found your voice yet to stand up and say, no, I am actually not okay with this and I don't stand for this and I do not accept these things happening within my space. If these things continue happening, I'm going to have to remove myself, right? So that's also a form of reinvention. So I would say give yourself a chance to reinvent yourself at any given moment. Maybe I can wake up tomorrow and decide I am becoming a different person, and no one can tell me anything about it. I am very okay. I am very, very okay with becoming a different person overnight because I have found new information, or I have decided that I don't like the way things are going in this moment. I have decided that I want to experience life differently. I lived my life as a vegan for about 6 years, right? And it was because I wanted that experience and it was fun. And then I woke up one morning and I was like, I don't want to be vegan anymore. And I was like, cool. So what does this mean? And then I slowly found my way back to eating meats. As much as like when I look back at that, curiosity drew me to being vegan. If that's a question that you currently have, I was curious about what it meant. And then I also realized I was living a very plant-based lifestyle at the time. And I realized like even in terms of okay, being vegan for me was more about food than anything else. And everyone was talking about like it was about oh, healthier options, healthier options. But then when I looked at it, I was like, I know where my chicken comes from. Like, does that make sense? I understand how my chickens are fed. Because if you live in a community, you live in a space and a society where people raise their own cows, they raise their own chickens. Like, I go to my mom's house and she slaughters a chicken. I know how this chicken was raised. I know what it was eating. I know the kind. Do you understand? And then I did not like meat substitutes because I was like, please don't feed me a pumpkin and call it steak. It's a pumpkin. Just say it's a roasted pumpkin that has been roasted in a barbecue sauce. Call it what it is. I used to really, really, really hate that. Not the reason I stopped being vegan, but I didn't like that. Just call things what they are. And I didn't like the idea of we're trying to turn things into what they're not. It does not matter what you do to a pumpkin, it's never going to taste like steak because steak and pumpkin are two very different things. So that used to irritate the hell out of me. But for a period of time, I was someone who just who was eating plant based foods. And then I stopped. And that didn't change me as a person. I was like, oh, now I want to experience life differently. And so for me, that's how I look at reinvention. I look at reinvention as you choosing to experience life in a different manner and, and experiencing it through different paths, taking a different journey, right? Some of the things that might get in the way of your reinvention, or some of the things I've experienced during my many, many reinventions. One, I would say, I think the biggest hindrance is mindset. Mindset, and I mean mindset in this regard, mindset in a way that you start doubting yourself because you'll start this thing for like, but I have lived my entire life doing ABC, right? Let's say I've lived my entire life eating chicken and eating meat. How will I be able to give up meat now? I can't be someone who doesn't eat meat. And you have those thoughts, right? I'm like, okay, does this mean that I am not getting ABC? Does this mean my experiences with my friends are going to change? You start talking yourself out of it because your mindset hasn't shifted, because you're still operating from the person that you're trying to change. And one of the things that I have learned over the many reincarnations, the many reinventions of my life, is that sometimes you have to stop thinking from that perspective, because all that that person knows is what has led you to where you are. For instance, like I said, I am currently trying to change my life. Why am I changing my life? I realized that the life that I envisioned for myself, which is what I call my dream life, when I'm living my ideal life, doesn't include certain things. But the life that I have now has been built through doing those very same things. But these things are not included in my ideal life, right? I have probably done them for survival. I have probably done them because I thought that was what was expected. I've done them because as an adult, that's what you're expected to do to be able to do ABC. But when I think of my ideal life, there's no space for certain things. Something as simple as, because sometimes we think it's something super big, something as simple as gossip. Okay. Gossip is fun. I will not lie. Gossip is fun. But then there's someone where there's a place where you can go like, okay, let's not use gossip because I love I love some good tea. There's elements of gossip that I really like, especially when you learn the history of gossip. I don't want to go into what it was about, like, but if you're curious, just go learn about the history of gossip and why even when people think of Moshene and how it's tied to women and what it's about. That's why I love a good tea session. With me and my girls, we're always gonna spill some tea because it's anyway. So not gossip. Let's say complaining. Let's use an example like complaining. So say you don't want to be a complainer anymore, right? You don't want to complain about things. You only want to look at certain things a certain way, or you want to be more solution oriented as opposed to complain oriented. So you've lived your entire life knowing that when something is wrong, I complain about it. And you get to this point where you're like, I no longer want to complain about things. I want to do something about them. So if I don't like something, I'm going to figure out how to change it. So for instance, I don't like my life. So instead of constantly complaining about all the aspects of my life I don't like, I'm going to start looking at the aspects of my life that I want to change. That's a mindset thing, right? Where you go like, one of the things that I don't see in my ideal life is me waking up and being like, ugh, another day where I have to da 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 da, right? Or another day where I have to go to this job that I don't like with this boss that I don't like. You can go like, okay, so what can I change about that? So you become very solution based, solution focused mindset. Shifting your mindset can help you reinvent yourself a lot better, I think. Another thing is environment. Environment can mean the friends we keep, the houses we're in, the spaces we frequent. You can look at certain things and realize that I am not someone who wants to be, say, in the bar every Friday till Sunday. So that can be something that you need to change, that you want to change. But then all the friends that you have, you only see them at the bar. So what does that mean? Does that mean making new friends or trying to meet these same friends in different environments? You can look at your environment and see, what can I change about the environment? What can I change about the relationships that I have that will aid in me reinventing myself? Does this mean that instead of going to the bar, in case, say, you are someone who goes like, I try to beat traffic or I try to avoid traffic when I leave the office on Fridays, so that's how I always end up in the bar. Then you can be like, okay, can I end up somewhere else where maybe, say, you are someone who's trying to quit drinking. So you want to avoid the bar because all your friends are at the bar and these are the friends you always drink with. Then you go like, what else happens on a Friday evening that may not involve drinking that can also help me avoid traffic? You can go for a play. That's a different environment, which helps and aids you in your reinvention. And now you become someone who goes to the theater as opposed to someone who goes to the bar. So environment can also be a big factor. And like I also mentioned, within the environment space, relationships, the relationships that you keep, you can figure out what the basis of the relationship is. For instance, when I was switching from, was it from theater? Yeah. No, yes, when I was transitioning basically from doing poetry stuff most of the time to doing a bit more social media management. So I started showing up to creative spaces, and then I would volunteer and I'd be like, hey, are you guys looking for an intern? I can do ABC if you're looking for someone to do admin work for you. And I remember interning at a space where I got exposed to a lot of photography. And then in doing that, I ended up taking photography lessons, which have helped me a ton in my content creation. At no point would I have looked at myself and thought, oh, maybe I should go learn photography. I don't think at any point I'd have gone like, I think I want to learn photography. But in putting myself in those environments, I ended up finding myself in a space where I learned this art form that has really helped me in everything else that I have done over time. How I ended up creating content on social media was I was consuming a lot of content at the time and I was enjoying it. And then people kept asking me questions about things like my makeup and how I used to do my makeup. I used to do crafting over the weekends and I would share photos on social media. And then that became a thing of like, ooh, do you want to show us how you do this? And then that's how I started creating content. It was fueled by my friends. And they saw what I was doing and then they encouraged me to do something different. And that's how we are where we are today. It's always been an evolution. And I've evolved from one thing to the next by following those passions, by being around different people, being in different environments. Another thing is fear. Fear is always a big deterrent to change, I believe. I feel like fear makes us stay stuck, or it makes us not think that we are capable of the things that somewhere deep down we know we are capable of. So fear is a factor. And I would suggest that if you are someone, say, who's in their reinvention journey, I've been dealing with fear. I will not lie to you. I've been dealing with fear and I'm a big believer in doing it scared. So I'm always like, but I really want this thing. So I'm going to do it whether fear is there or not. And sometimes when you do things, regardless of the fear or despite or in spite of the fear, with the fear being present, when you do it, you start realizing that, oh, I had placed this huge thing on it and it's actually not that big. Does right? When you've built a mountain, you've built this huge mountain from a point of fear because you haven't done the thing yet. And then you do the thing and you're like, wow, this comes so naturally to me. This is fascinating, right? So I would say if you find yourself being scared, you have these fears about not even being good at it, it's not going to work out, whatever it is that you're telling yourself, that is the version of you that you are now that is stopping you because it's comfortable where it is. You're speaking from a point of view that has created the same thing that you are trying to get away from, the same thing you're trying to reinvent from, the same thing you're trying to grow from, the same thing you're trying to change. And of course, from the point of which, when you're looking at things and thinking, oh, I want to change my life, I know for sure that I cannot change my life from the same spot, the same situation, from the same habits, from the same thoughts, the same mindset that got me to exactly where I am. I'd have to change some things. The whole point of change is change itself, where you have to actually start doing the thing. And then that's where you go like, oh, see, that's different. So it's different from a point of, if I'm so used to staying in bed till midday, then tomorrow I wake up and get out of bed at 10. Suddenly I'm not someone who stays in bed till midday. I already have proof that I can get out of bed earlier than midday. That's change. That's reinvention. That's how I look at reinvention. I look at reinvention as just making different choices that I would normally not have made. So if naturally the choice would be to go left, for me, reinvention is choosing to go right today and then choosing to go right tomorrow and then choosing to go right the next day. And now suddenly I'm someone who goes right instead of left. That's how and that's how I think of reinvention. So I would say if you are someone who is trying to reinvent themselves, I am like right now, even with this podcast, the reason we haven't posted, and by we, it's me, myself, and I. Okay, I always call for myself. I call myself for a meeting. There's multiple of us, so don't worry about it. When I say we, the reason we haven't posted for the last couple of months was because I was not sure about the direction that I was taking with the podcast, how to take it to where I wanted it to go. And I decided to reinvent how I was doing it. I decided to switch things up and make different choices and make different decisions around it, and mostly around the guest episodes, because that's what was disturbing me the most. And I realized the more I kept thinking about how I want to do it, I wasn't doing it. I was stuck in the space of constantly thinking, how do I do this? I want to do this, but how do I do this? And I had started initially, right? And then I realized like the way I was doing it initially was limiting me to the people I could talk to, because if I'm shooting in my house, that means I can only call people to my house if I trust them. And then there's also the fear of I'm a woman who lives by themselves. There's certain layers of safety that you have to take into consideration. So that kind of limits the kind of guests that I can have. But then I also want to open the doors to having more types of guests and more different guests and a broader list of people that I'd want to talk to. But then at the same time, I'm not comfortable just inviting anyone and everyone to my house. So how do I go about it? And so I decided let's change how we do that and do it differently. That way we make sure that with every episode that I post, I'm not putting myself at risk. With every guest that I invite, I don't have to worry about having someone in my personal space, having a stranger in my personal space, having a bunch of different people knowing where I live. And sometimes, like, these things are important to us. So, safety for me is a big deal as someone who has been robbed multiple times in their personal space. That's something that at the back of my mind, I have to still be very careful with, right? So I was like, cool. So how do we change that? And so that's how I came up with the new concept of like, you know what? I still want to have these conversations. And who says they all have to be had on camera? Some of them don't have to be had on camera, but they can still be had. And so I was like, so how do we go about that? And it's like, yeah, let's just do audio only episodes until we can figure out the situation, until we are comfortable and able to get it to the next level that I would want to do it. Because for me, the important thing is having the conversations happening, not necessarily having them be on camera, not necessarily having them on YouTube. For me, the importance is, can we have these conversations? So if you are trying to navigate change, I would say be kind to yourself. Um, and the reason I'm saying be kind and handle yourself with grace is because when we are making decisions, I don't think we wake up and think, what's the worst decision I can make for myself today? I don't think that's how we approach things. I think we approach things from a point of thinking we're making the best decision for ourselves in that moment with all the information that we have. Sometimes we're thinking this is the best decision in this moment. Later on down the line, we might come and realize that maybe that wasn't the best decision. But in that moment, being in that space, it maybe was the only and best decision we could have made. So handle yourself with kindness, handle yourself with grace, and allow yourself to evolve, because that's what it means to be a human being. Being a human being is allowing yourself to grow as you get new information, grow as you encounter new people, grow as you get new experiences in this life, as you learn more, as you acquire more knowledge, as you enter new spaces, as new information comes to light. Allow yourself to take in this information and make new decisions and make changes. and be graceful with yourself. I think that would be the biggest thing I would say. And don't be too hard on yourself as long as you know you're doing your best. Because sometimes we know we're not doing our best. Sometimes we know. But as long as you know you're doing your best with what you have and where you are, and then celebrate your small wins. If today I wake up at 10 and then tomorrow I wake up at 11:30, it's still a step in the direction of the things that I want. As long as you know you're taking steps towards the things that you want, you're taking steps towards your reinvention, you're taking steps toward the changes that you want, applaud yourself for that, because those small steps end up compounding into this big shift. Sometimes we always think that we need a huge shift. Sometimes it's those small decisions that you make during the day. If you are someone who's trying to be a gym girly and you've decided that what you want to do is you want to change, you want to work on your health, you want to eat better, it doesn't start with you one day throwing everything out of your fridge. And no, it starts with buying that gym set. It starts with, I found a trainer. It starts with, today I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk. It starts with, oh, I've got myself a gym membership. It starts with doing the stretches in the house and watching some girlie who says, oh, this is good for you if you're someone who wants to start lifting weights or do this. That's how it starts. But all these things end up compounding together, where today it's the walk. Tomorrow, it's you doing cardio for 20 minutes. The next day, it's you eating a salad instead of a whole bowl of, I don't know what, fries. Then the following day. So all these small steps, when you put them together, that becomes your catalyst for change. That becomes it moves the lever, it moves the pin, it moves the needle a little bit. And then you do that next week and the move keeps happening. You do it the following week and then a month down and you're like, oh, I'm starting to do cardio for 30 minutes instead of 20. Isn't that progress? I am now eating 3 healthy meals a day. Isn't that progress? I am now, you get. So with everything that you're trying to do, with every type of change that you are trying to incorporate in your life, whatever small step you take, applaud yourself for that, and then do it the next day, and then do it the next day, and then do it the next day. And that's how you end up becoming a completely different person. You don't have to wake up and overhaul your life in one night. Even when you're thinking of changing your wardrobe, you don't have to throw out everything. It starts with just buying a new top today, buying a different pair of pants tomorrow. And then before you know it, you have a completely new wardrobe and all your old stuff is gone. That's all I had to say about reinvention. And if you have any new, no, if you have if you have any hacks, any points that you would like to add, please leave them in the comment section. Share them with me. I would love to hear how you go about reinvention. If you are someone who's reinvented themselves over and over again, or even just once, whenever, however many times, how you've gone about that. Some of the things that have worked for you. What are the tricks? What are the difficult situations that you ended up overcoming? Because sometimes also it's in overcoming that we actually end up to the other side. Homework. So as you noticed at the beginning of this episode, we didn't do a homework check-in because it's been months, but I hope you did do the homework from the previous episode. But I am leaving you with homework, which I'll be checking next week. Okay. I would say, because we are talking reinvention today, write an area in your life that you'd want to reinvent. And then write 3 things that you think you could start doing like today that will help you in that journey. Just write 3 things. You don't have to do anything about them. If you feel like you're called to do one of them, you can. If it's, I want to reinvent the way I dress, and you say, you know what I can do? I can go dress shopping and I'll buy one dress and nothing else. I will change my hair and nothing else. Whatever it may be, include it, write it in the list, and may that be the first step to your invention. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, download this episode, share it with a friend. Sharing is caring. If you know someone who's in their reinvention journey and may need a bit of encouragement, that it is doable and they can make it, you can send them this episode. Remember to follow us on social media at JDL, the podcast. That is our handle. We are on Instagram as well as TikTok. You can use that as a hashtag on Twitter in case you want to share this episode or want to share your thoughts. My personal handle is I am Mothonigitao on all platforms. I will see you back here next Friday with another episode of Options. Don't forget to Don't forget to check out our guest episodes that go up on Wednesday. And we are available on Spotify or wherever you like to receive your audio episodes. Can check out our link tree in case you are curious about where we are located on the interwebs. Thank you so much. I will see you back here on Friday. Have yourself a lovely, lovely weekend. Bye-bye.